Hey guys, welcome back to Two Dudes Sumo. This is Chuck. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. As you can kind of tell, it's not the same kind of format that we had for our last video with Joe. This time I'm going to be introducing something called the Benjamin Method, which is a method for doing statistics in sumo that I learned about in a book that I'll share with you in a moment. This is something that I've used for this past basho as a way to sort of interact with the sumo a little more. I'm a statistics guy in sports in general, so in sumo there's not a ton of statistics beyond win and loss. So this just adds a little bit of nerdiness to it, I guess you could say. So we're just going to go over that method. I'm not going to go into the statistics themselves too deep for this past basho. This is just an overview with some examples, and then I'm sure things will evolve as the months and years go on. As you know, I'm pretty new to this. This is only my third month being interested in sumo, so my second tournament. And again, this is just a way that I'm using to be familiar with what sumo entails. So it's called the Benjamin Method, as you can see here, because it was developed by a man called David Benjamin, who wrote this fantastic book, Sumo, A Thinking Fan's Guide to Japan's National Sport. It's an incredible book for somebody who's a new fan or has been a fan for a while. I know Joe read it as well, and he really enjoyed it. It talks about sumo in sort of an irreverent way, which is kind of interesting because it's a stark contrast to the world of sumo. Is very ritualized and proper and serious and stern, but this book is written the complete opposite of that, but it doesn't do it in a way that's disrespectful. This guy is a journalist who has covered sumo in Japan. He's lived in Japan for 20 to 30 years covering sumo, so he's a guy who knows what he's talking about. It's an awesome introduction to the world of sumo, the culture, but also he gives a chapter where he goes over this statistic method that he came up with. I don't know if other people out there are using it besides him, kind of like I am, but I'm excited to share that with you guys. Maybe something you'll be interested in. Let's see if I can get the slideshow to skip here. My computer is very old, and I'm doing a lot of things at once. It's not liking me. Alright, so the main core of this method is his Rikishi rating system. Now you can see we have here the Bansuke for the just prior to this last basho. So this is the Bansuke, the current one, until the new one is developed in May. And you can see that there is the records on the outsides, and then there's points next to each Rikishi, next to each wrestler. And I didn't reproduce his methods for determining how many points to give each Rikishi. That just would have been too long. It's all laid out in the book. Again, I highly recommend the book, but suffice it to say, he has different rankings in the Bansuke broken down into subsections. So he goes through that and tells you, like for example, I believe his Yokozuna number scale goes from 17 to 20, and he talks about why. And the Ozeki, same thing, I believe for Ozeki it's 15 through 17. So there's a little bit of overlap there, but he does that for the different Bansuke rankings. So one thing that I had to do, and it's not a perfect science, especially for someone who's new to me, who I've only really seen these guys in one basho previously, as a brand new sumo fan, so I didn't know what I was looking at for this one anyway, but I went through and I gave each Rikishi their own numerical point value, as you can see here, and that is the main part of this whole ranking system. Everything revolves around those points. So what you do during the tournament is anytime you have two guys going against each other, whichever Rikishi wins, he accrues the amount of points that his opponent had. So let's just say up here, for convenience sake, we had Kirishima versus Hoshoryu. Kirishima wins, so that means for day one he will accrue 16 points, and Hoshoryu will accrue 0 points because you only get the points when you defeat someone. So you track that through all 15 days. Those points add up, and at the end you see who has the most points. So it's interesting to see if the Rikishi with the most points at the end of the tournament great, and then, you know, was really nursing a back injury, so you see lots of zeros there. But you can see here, you know, you look at someone like Koto Nowaka, he ended up with 96 points total, and you can see the zeros represent losses, and then you can see the points that he accrued by beating his respective Rikishi. So this doesn't take that long. The longest part at the beginning is creating the numbers, the points, and assigning those to the Rikishi. Since the Bansuke changes for every tournament, that is something that's going to have to be done every tournament. So I guess, you know, 6 times a year I will assign new numerical values based on demotions and promotions, which is kind of fun and it's kind of nerdy, and I'm not against it. So but yeah, so that's what they do. They accrue points throughout the week, and then we use these points and their point totals to come up with some other statistics. So 3 that we've used here. Now the first 2, the OAR and the APM, are in Benjamin's book. The PPW is something that I was just curious about, so I just kind of set that up for myself. But as you can see, the OAR is opponent's average rating. So that is the total average of all 15 of your opponents, or however many, you know, if you're injured, that you go up against. So it doesn't take into account wins or losses. It just gives a numerical point value for every opponent, and then at the end you divide that by the number of matches they were in. So if a guy doesn't get injured and he wrestles all 15 days, you add up the point totals for all his opponents across those 15 days divided by 15, and that is the opponent's average rating. So that's an interesting one there, so you can kind of see the quality of opponent they're going against. Guys lower on the Bansuke, this is just a snapshot over here of this past Basho, but you don't see all the Rikishi on there because it wouldn't fit on the screen. So, but you can see, like, this is the lowest rank down here, Takayasu, and his opponent average rating was 3.7. So that obviously means the average number of points for the opponents he went up against was 3.7, regardless of whether he won or lost. And then you can kind of look and see this Abi, Nishikigi, Komusubi ranking here. We're looking at a 9.3 and 11.2. So you can look at this and say, okay, the quality of opponent that Nishikigi faced off in this tournament was 11.2, is a higher quality opponent than Takayasu had to wrestle at his 3.7. So everything kind of goes with those rankings, and you get it built up that way. Average points per match. This just it's very simple, just takes the total number of points at the end of the tournament divided by 15. So this, again, is just not just the points of the opponents, because remember, they get zeros if they lose. So it's those wins and the zeros added together divided by 15. That's their average points per match. So again, you can kind of see they kind of jump all over the place here. It's interesting here for Nishikigi, his opponent's average rating is an 11.2, but his average points per match is only a 2.1. So that will show you that he wrestled a lot of high-ranking, top ranked in terms of R points Rikishi, and then didn't win a ton, because you can see his average points per match is only 2.1. So he couldn't have had, you know, a huge record and only had 2.1 as his average points per match. So you see some correlation there. And then the last one, PPW, is pretty self-explanatory, points per win. So what I did was I just added up all the points in their wins for over the 15 days and divided by however many matches that was. And that it sort of goes along with the opponent's average rating, but this will show you the average rating of the opponents that they beat. So you can look at somebody like Ura here is a good one to point out. His points per win is 12.3. So the Rikishi that he wrestled and won, their average rating was a 12.3. That's kind of interesting to look at that statistic compared to the opponent's average rating, the OAR, of 11.3, and then an average points per match of 4.9. Again, you can find correlations all over the place if you really want to. If it's too nerdy, you don't have to. I just find it interesting to compare. So I have here just the top 5 in the different point stat categories. For total points, we have Koto Nowaka with 96, Onosato at 90, Asanoyama 89, Hoshoryu 87, Wakamoto Haru 86. you'll see on the next, I believe it's the next slide, I have the stats for our winner, Teruno Fuji. That's pretty interesting to look at, but you can see here in terms of total points, Kota Nowaka had the most. He also topped out the average points per match at 6.4, which kind of makes sense. The person with the highest point total should be the one with the highest points per match. Opponents' average rating, we see Ura here and Nishikigi and Asanayama all pretty close there, just a few tenths of a point away from each other. But again, those, that matters when you look at the quality of opponents that they're going against. And we have Ura again at a 12.3 for his points per win. So it's interesting to see that, and I'll be curious to see if this continues with the next tournament, that the total points and the APM are the same, and that the OAR and the PPW leaders were the same. So it makes sense that that would happen, but I'll be curious to see if that continues to happen as we go forward. Another cool thing to note, I don't have anything on it yet because it's so new, is we'll be able to look at another statistical category. I think it's called points per basho, where you can look at maybe the last 5 tournaments or look at 6 tournaments in a year and say, Tobizaru for 2024, his average points per basho were, whatever. So there'll be some different things once the sample size is bigger with multiple tournaments, different things that we can look at. That'll be pretty fun. At least I think so, in that way. So we just have a quick snapshot here of the sumo champion that we have, the incredible rookie, Takeru Fuji. His total points was 60, which you can see is a lot less than Kota Nowaka's 96, who was the leader. His OAR was 5.6, APM was 4.0, and points per win was 4.6. So this obviously tells us that, not that we want to take anything away from Takeru Fuji, because he was an absolute monster and he fought through what looked to be a pretty horrible injury to win the tournament. He set all kinds of records, which, me and Joe will have a video where we go into a little bit more of that from the tournament. But not to take anything away from him, but this kind of shows you that, at least for the majority of the basho, the first 8-9 weeks, his opponents were a little on the lower ranking side. So he wasn't, his average points aren't as high as some of the other guys, even though he's the one who won the tournament. So just a fun kind of nerdy way to look at sumo and look at statistics and see, make relationships between certain things, and look at how certain rikishi, go against other rikishi. Maybe look at something like the different rankings in the Bansuke. Like Benjamin in his book, I think he calls the Komusubi rank the meat grinders, and I think he says that they're always 10, like their worth is always 10 points, and then they always have the hardest competition because they start off against the high Magashira guys and then the rest of the Sanyaku guys. And I thought it was interesting. I don't have it up here, I don't think. Well, you can kind of see Abi and Nishikigi were the Komusubi here, but Nishikigi obviously did not perform well in that ranking. So those meat grinder rankings, I'm seeing in my statistics that he has helped develop, that his conclusion is correct about the Komusubi being the meat grinders and throwing them to the wolves kind of thing. So just an interesting way to be more involved in sumo. Kind of gives me something to do more than just watch the matches when they happen each day of the 15 days, and to look at relationships and correlations and kind of nerd out about that and see where it goes from there. So I hope you guys like it. If you have any questions about it, you can certainly just drop us a comment here on YouTube, or you can find us on Facebook, Two Dudes Sumo. You can message us there. Make sure you like us there. But again, it's just a kind of a nerdy way to interact with sumo a little bit more. I would love to get you guys doing this so we could talk about it. If you haven't read Benjamin's book, Sumo, it's an incredible book. I highly recommend it. And it's just another thing that you can use to fall in love with the amazing world of Grand Sumo. So thank you guys for tuning in. Much appreciated. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day and start watching sumo.